Hello, everyone, and welcome to Winged Victory with Rob and Scott, a podcast by the National Museum of World War II Aviation here in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Well, folks, we have another edition of Winged Victory with Rob and Scott. I being Rob and Scott being...
Me being Scott.
Fortunately, Scott. And now the shoe's on the other foot.
Yeah, unfortunately, here we go.
We're going to learn about our other host, our younger and handsomer host, my friend Scott. And this is going to be kind of interesting because
we shall see about that.
Start. I mean, you, as I've said to people, you've grown up in this, but that's not all of who you are. I see pictures of back there of you in race cars and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've been pretty fortunate. I've had quite the life.
Well, yeah, and hopefully far more to come.
That's the plan, I hope.
Yeah.
Taking steps for that.
Yeah.
To try to keep it going.
Well, it's all about the maintenance.
Yeah, I'm finding that out after 50.
Yeah, well.
The warranty's up at 40, they said, and it's showing on 50.
They'll renew it.
Yeah, we'll see.
But, so, I mean, were you always a gearhead?
That's probably at a pretty young age for most people. Like I said, I grew up around this for a long time, but I wasn't really as interested in it. I mean, I loved airplanes. I had a passion for World War II airplanes. I loved being around them. I loved seeing them fly. But when you spend every other weekend of your life at the airport, when you're a kid and when your life's goal is just to get out with your friends and play, and then you're kind of taken away from that every other weekend, to go to a dirt patch out in the middle of nowhere, you kind of tend to kind of like push that to the side a little bit.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't know how to use a tool for, if you would have asked me to get you a 3/4 wrench, it would have taken me about an hour and a half to find one kind of thing, until I was about 16.
Yeah, but you also struck out on your own in the automotive world. I know you actually turned wrenches for money.
And that kind of started, like I said, when I was 16. So I had a very fortunate, like I said, upbringing that my grandfather was on my mom's side was a big race car guy. He was involved in racing from a very young age, and that's kind of how my mom and dad met. Is he actually had a motorcycle shop in Fontana, California, and that's my dad started working for him because my dad was into dirt bikes and he was racing and stuff and doing flat track and all that, and so my grandpa had been big into it, and my uncle as well. So once they kind of got done with the motocross stuff, because, back then your body can handle it until you're about 23.
Yeah.
And then they kind of got into what started out as a Honda Odyssey, caged one-person driver, kind of what the side-by-sides are today, but it was only a one-person thing. And they started out unsuspended, and then they kind of just kept evolving it, and eventually it turned into full-on race cars and stuff, and it turned into became part of the Mickey Thompson Off-Road series back in the day, where they would go through kind of like what Supercross is with dirt bikes in the stadiums, but they did it with trucks and buggies and
the whole
Superlites.
Baja thing was big and
so they were kind of different. Like they had the Baja trucks, and then they had the stadium trucks, which were smaller, probably more expensive. I don't know, because Toyota and Mazda, they were all kind of into it. So it was pretty big. It was televised. It was a pretty cool deal. My uncle was a 2-time champion in that class. And so when I turned 16 and I got my car, I had freedom, and my grandparents lived an hour from me. They lived in the Inland Empire, and I was up in the high desert. So I don't know how, but I suddenly decided, actually, I remembered it. Actually, my little brother had an interest in it, and my grandpa was going to build him like a flat track car.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, like he just kind of had this thing. Well, of course, if my brother's going to do that, like I want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever. I had no interest, but I decided suddenly that I was going to be a part of that. So I started driving down to my grandparents, and then that never really took hold, and my brother just kind of didn't really
drifted away.
Yeah, he didn't really stick with it too much. And but then I got involved with their racing, so I was started mechanicking for my uncle. So it was very fortunate. I was able to learn a bunch of skills from, two guys that were just out of this world,
high performance kind of guys.
Yeah, my grandpa was a genius. He was an inventor. I mean,
Yeah.
that guy, he had a pad next to his bed, and he'd wake up in the middle of the night and he'd have, okay, this is how I'm going to solve this. And then, so you'd wake up in the morning and he'd come out with his pad and you're like, all right, here we go.
Yeah.
And he would sit in there and he would build stuff and invent things and change things. He was really a behind the scenes innovator of a lot of things. I mean, he was actually, believe it or not, he was one of the first people that came up with long travel suspension for dirt bikes. Back in the day, they were 3 inches if you were lucky, and there's actually an article out there online that you can find that they actually invented these long, and everybody was like, I don't know about that,
Yeah, I'd rather my spine and neck took all that.
Exactly. So I was real fortunate for me that I was able to, grow up in that environment with people that I trusted, that believed in and would give you every bit of attention to teach you something.
Yeah.
If I just jumped into a workplace environment like that, people are busy with their stuff. They're not as willing to help you and teach you and stuff. So, and it was a very creative environment. So I got to explore, like, well, what would happen if I did this, or what if I built this, So after about a year of that, my uncle was racing the last year of his series. He decided to retire racing. And so I was fortunate enough that my grandpa was like, well, you're next. Get in that car.
Right.
And it turns out that I actually might have had a kernel of talent. Never having raced anything in my life, it just felt natural for me.
So was this track racing, road racing?
No, it's off-road. It was an off-road car, fully suspended. At the time, it was a single-cylinder, 350cc, two-stroke engine, snowmobile belt-driven. And, in the car, it felt like you were doing 200 miles an hour, and going off of 20-foot jumps, it felt like.
Wow.
And then looking back at the footage later, you're like, man, I was going slow. But it was interesting. And that was pretty fun. So, that kind of was my passion, I guess, for a little while. But, I was in the series and I was racing with guys, Jimmy Johnson, NASCAR legend.
Oh.
He started out in that same series with me, and then Casey Mears and some of these other guys that went on to race NASCAR and stuff. But at the time, that had never been the case.
Yeah.
So, here I am, I'm 17 years old, and senior in high school, and my grandpa looks at me and goes, you need to figure out what you're going to do with your life after this, because nothing ever comes from this. This is fun. It's expensive, it's a lifestyle, but you're never going to make any money doing this, So that's when I decided I needed to sign up and go to Laramie, Wyoming for school, automotive school, to kind of, because I just knew, like, I could read. I was very well read. I always read books from a very young age, but I knew I never wanted to be stuck behind a computer screen. I always knew that I needed to work with my hands. I wanted to have that ability to, I don't know, wear a T-shirt and jeans or shorts and go to work.
Well, and regardless of what path anybody takes, I think everybody needs to be able to produce something with their hands. I don't care if it's throwing pottery, repairing cars.
Yeah,
you got to be able to do something.
There's something
instead
to be
of just twinkle a keyboard.
Said about that. I think yes. I think you could create a lot of stress and you could relax a lot of stress.
Yeah.
When you're using your hands and you're physically up all day and you're working and you're you know, and you get that exhaustion when you get home. But it's a satisfying exhaustion. You know that you kind of accomplished something, even if you didn't that day.
Well, but you can look, even if not that day, the next day, you can look and say...
You hope. You hope that you can look at it and go, I accomplished that.
Actually, I look around here, and I see stuff that you've finished at whatever time.
Yeah.
And I know it's frustrating. I watched you wrestling with some sheet metal the other day.
Yeah, you know, I mean, you definitely go through that point in time where you're just feel like you're spinning your wheels, and you're just like, what is going on? I can't get this figured out. I can't get anything done. I can't and then you stress about it and you worry about it, and then a couple days, a couple weeks, maybe a couple months later, you look at it and you go, wow, oh, I did that. Yep. Oh, okay, it's accomplished.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's definitely something to be said about that. I fully believe in that, and that's just been my philosophy. Like, I just can't, man. I have to fill out timesheets, like, and just write a little thing every day about what I did, and I don't even want to do that. You know, it's like, that's too much paperwork. You know, I want to go out here and I want to work.
I had a glimpse of hell one time. I had a very talented gal working for me, and she worked service records, you know, personnel files. And at the end of the day, her inbox and her outbox would be at the same level. And I know she had processed, you know, dozens of things, and I thought, oh, yeah, God love you, darling.
I can't imagine living life like that. I mean, it's just, that to me is just I couldn't do it.
You need people like that, but,
yeah,
you know, I don't want to be that person either.
Yeah.
So, but you did, after Laramie, you wound up.
So yeah, I ended up going
for money.
Well, yeah, I ended up starting out at a Nissan dealership. I was very, very fortunate. Actually, though, I think the only reason I got the job is because I went to Laramie and went to school. It was between me and another guy, and I had the diploma or whatever degree or whatever you want to call it, and so I got the job. And this was in Fontana. It was actually before they even built the Fontana Speedway. That's how old I feel. So, but I was very fortunate. I got paired up with the guy Charles, and I got paid $10 an hour flat rate, but they paid him $2 of that for every hour I got, and then I got $8 of it. And so that kind of linked him to me. You know, he had a vested interest, and it turned out he was one of the top Nissan mechanics in the country. You know, he'd go to the competition and did very well at the end of the year. And he was a good guy, and he really, I mean, I really learned, that's really where I learned how to work, I think, you know, with that guy and those people. So it was a great learning experience, and I did pretty well. I was a pretty decent mechanic. I picked stuff up very fast. I can't explain to you how I could diagnose something, but I could diagnose it, especially electrical. I don't know why. I can't do anything electrical on the airplane. It drives me crazy, but on a car, I would somehow just magically find it, you know, all the time.
Oh, brother, I got a favor to ask you.
No. Stopped working on cars a long time ago. So, you know, it was 7 years of doing that.
Yeah.
And I kind of bebopped around Southern California, different dealerships here and there, trying to, you know, get the next increment of money kind of thing. And then I ended up at a Toyota dealership, the last dealership I worked at. And the first month I was there, the general manager asked me to play on their softball team. So I went out there and I was like, oh, this is great, you know. First time on base, I popped my ankle so bad, it was a watermelon, and I was in between where I didn't have the insurance.
Oh, great.
So I was kind of screwed. So I couldn't work.
That's a chunk of change out of your pocket.
Yeah, it could have been, but I was very fortunate. They put me in as a service advisor just to keep me going, which was really cool of them, actually. They didn't have to do that. And so then I kind of got into the service manager portion. They opened up a Hyundai dealership across the street, and I got involved in that. But that was about the time that I really got to see kind of what car dealerships could be.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with a lot of new car sales.
Yeah.
You know, they're bringing you all their service work, and you're seeing the contracts, and you're seeing how they're taking care of their people.
Yep.
And so I just got real disillusioned with that whole aspect of that. And not only that, but even if I went back to the mechanic part of it, you're just a parts replacer at that point. You're not. They didn't have you rebuilding.
Problems.
Yeah, they didn't have you rebuilding engines. They didn't have you rebuilding transmissions, which even then would probably get pretty mundane.
Yeah.
After a while. And so, this is probably, I don't know how old I was, 28 maybe at the time. And, in between me being a kid in the dirt and a T-hanger at Rialto, to that point, the business had grown quite a bit with my dad.
Your dad's business had grown.
Yeah, the restoration business had grown quite a bit, and they were doing some pretty amazing things over there. And I just decided, hey, this is the time to do it. I was making more money at the dealership, but I hated it. And so I wanted to do something more creative. I wanted to be able to work with my hands. So I begged him for a job, and he gave it to me, probably pretty reluctantly, but he did, And let me tell you, it is not like working on a car. You get into the airplane stuff, and things are so finite, and they got to be right, and you got to use the right hardware, and there's just so many things that you're learning, and it was terrible. I was not good.
But the stakes are so much higher.
Well, yeah.
You goon up somebody's car, they might be late for work.
Well, it's not even. I mean, it's that portion of it. Yeah, if they're out flying, obviously you don't just pull over and call a tow truck. But it was also that the point that the restoration business was at and what they were doing with these airplanes. Yeah. You couldn't just be like, well, that's good enough. Or that's good enough. No, that wasn't
not
good
working
enough.
For your dad.
Well, it wasn't even working for it was the customer too.
Yeah.
It was what the customer was requiring, in the way that they'd taken that up to the top level of restorations at that point, and what they required in it. So I mean, you could mull around for days on just like, well, what color paint do I put on this part?
Yeah.
What was it painted? Well, it was painted this. Well, are you sure? Because I see this over here. Well, this is what they showed in the book, but this is what the actual part that maybe we pulled off. But was this the same model? I don't know. Did it come out of the same factory? I don't know. There's so many things that go into it, and that's just at the beginning when you don't know anything. And then you start to, if you're around it long enough, I mean, to this day, I'm learning, oh, this is how this is supposed to work, or, things click where it maybe didn't, were kind of getting by before, but it didn't click.
Yeah.
And I'm not really explaining that as well as I should, but, I had to do an alteration on a aileron this week, which means I had to kind of grind out some of the wood and stuff, which means I got to refabricate it. Well, then you got to sand it down, the paint, and then you realize, well, that's a different fabric than what we normally use, and I don't know how do we do that? What's the process? Well, then you got to get a hold of so-and-so, and then they tell you the process. Well, then you got to it's all different. Everything's always different.
But that's got to be, engaging to you.
Yeah.
You're solving puzzles
every day. But it's a two-edged sword. You're being pushed, and you're always trying to learn, and you got to get creative to build something or fix something. Maybe I got to make a special tool to fit into to rivet that Mustang aileron, but at the same time, you're not doing the same thing all the time. Mm-hmm. So what you learned last week, you might not use again for another 4 years.
Well, yeah.
You might not use that skill. So for me, it's kind of it's an interesting thing because I have a very good ability to just forget stuff. Like, I lived it. That was great.
Now
moving on, so sometimes when you got to recall, like, well, yeah, I did this 6 years ago. What did I do? I don't remember. It's an interesting thing. So you just got to kind of constantly relearn and be like, you'll get into the middle of something, like if I'm fabricating a part, and then you'll kind of have the light bulb go off and go, yeah, I remember doing this on the P-38 6 years ago, and this is how I did it. And so you can kind of build on that, but at the same time, you're constantly just kind of relearning or learning.
So we go back to the P-38, which is still such an amazing project. That wasn't your first project working with your dad. Not even close. It still is probably going to be one of the watershed projects. But did you start out on one of the Thunderbolts or? Yeah,
so actually I started out. They had just finished FHC's Flying Heritage Collections P-51 UPOPA EPOPs.
Yeah.
They just finished that, and that had just left the shop when I started working there. So I wasn't a part of that. But they were in the middle of doing Flying Heritage's P-47 Thunderbolt. So that was where I jumped in. Literally probably the first 6 months of my career, I just spent removing rust off of bolts, parts, acting like I knew what I was doing when I had no idea. There was no fabrication, there was no cool stuff going on. I mean, it was all just kind of the mundane stuff that you give the kid that doesn't know what he's doing, kind of thing. Which is where I belonged. That's what you needed to do. And what was great about it is that I'm learning, what is this screw? What kind of bolt is this? Why are we using this bolt? Why are we using this screw, this nut, whatever? I didn't even know, I think if things move, you use a cotter pin. you don't use a locking nut or whatever. But so there was a huge learning curve. And then at the same time, my uncle, who was also working there, who was a really skilled fabricator in his own right, he was the painter, and he decided that I was the next dummy that was going to be the painter because he didn't want to do that forever anymore. Yeah, he'd been doing it for a long time and probably had more than his fair share of chemicals absorbed, and so he decided it was my turn to do that. So I jumped in and started learning how to throw paint on objects. Even to this day, I still wouldn't consider myself a painter, but I can run it with the best of them. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So you're just things you just kind of find your little niche was for that time being, and for the longest time it was mechanical work, it was mundane work, it was painting, kind of wherever I could just make myself useful, and worth keeping around. And I was very fortunate to jump into a shop that had some really good talent. I mean, these guys were the top of the top. That was the top shop in the world at that time, for sure. And so the fact that I got to feed off of these guys and even just sit back and just watch them and observe them, has always kind of been my skill. I'm not really, it's hard for me to do book reading and absorb. I'm more of a watcher. I could watch somebody swing a golf club and then I can kind of do it. I could watch somebody snowboard and I can kind of do it. Motocross, it was all kind of the same thing, and it's probably where the racing came from. I watched racing my whole life, and so you jump in the car, you know how to do it. But so that I was very fortunate I was able to do that and pick off of these guys and learn the right way to do things.
Yeah.
It saved me a lot of work down the road and pain. And I'm still here, so I didn't get fired either, so that's great.
Well,
there are times that I should have been, for sure.
That is an achievement, and we're still in. Well, I'm not qualified to judge, but I still think it's the best shop in the country. But there are great ones, to be sure, and we know them.
We definitely, there's definitely some good shops out there for sure. I mean, and we are a good shop. But we're just a small shop now. We got 4 guys working in the restoration shop, 1 guy in the prop shop, and then you got Bill Dude in the office. I mean, we all work really well together, and we've worked together for a long time.
I don't know that there's anything wrong with being a small shop.
Well, There are some things that it's a disadvantage at times. There's times when you're looking for a hand to put an aileron up, and you're looking around and there's nobody around, So, there's
sure
things.
You sure don't want to ask one of those docents to.
No. But I mean, if you had, you're just talking volume, then yeah, if you're trying to pump stuff out faster and be, maybe leave more of a legacy behind by the end of your time, then yeah, you would need more people to do that.
Yeah,
sure.
And I mean, we know some of those people, and I think we just talked to one of the legacy folks last episode.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I think there's a natural progression, and it's important to be able to find the folks that'll show up. Here's another example. When did we talk to Nicole? Episode.
I don't even know what the episode was anymore.
But we get those people coming in tomorrow.
Yeah.
And sooner or later, the cream rises, and the next real talent or the next potential talent is going to show up.
Yeah, I just think with every generation, it's getting whittled down a little bit more and a little bit more. The farther away from the war you get, and there's just a lot of factors. I mean, let's face it. You're not starting out with an airplane that flies in and the guy's looking at you and saying, "Hey, I'd like to rebuild this airplane so that it's original." That didn't fly in.
It didn't fly in,
no.
But somebody trucked it in
But somebody started with basically nothing, so it had already been somewhere else getting worked on. You're starting with stuff that is pretty. Most people look at and go, "What? You're going to build that?" And so it takes a certain kind of talent, I think, to be able to resurrect something that shouldn't, in anybody's right mind, be rebuilt. But to do it, I mean, it's a lot of work, and it's a different type of work. It's a different type of mentality, and so I think it's just getting harder and harder. Like you said, and let's face it. I mean, there's a money aspect to it as well. I mean,
to be sure,
people get their A&Ps and they spend the time to do that, and then they want to go off and make the money that they can make where they can make it.
Well, and that's
so it becomes a passionate thing.
Obviously it is, and I know you're a little worried about the age gap, but I was working the N3N yesterday and had a big crowd show up, and I said, "Well, I'm really supposed to leave. I'm not sure how many of you I can work with." And then over my shoulder, here's my relief instructor who had to have his mom drive him down here.
Yeah.
So those people will show up.
I'm not saying that it's done.
No.
At all. I'm just saying that
absolutely not.
It's probably a little bit. It's just getting harder and harder every generation. I think you're not getting as many people to jump in that want to be a part of something like this and really commit to being something.
But it's sort of like Leonidas and the 300 or whatever. The ones who do show up are already predisposed to.
Well, yeah, they're the ones that that are going to latch on, and they're going to continue to run something like this for generations to come, for sure. There's just a lot of factors. I don't know. I'd be very curious if I had a time machine to be able to really look 40 years in the future and see what the Warbird movement or general aviation in general, for that matter.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of innovations and things that are being kicked around in the world today that might impact, how do you go fly your general aviation airplane when you got a bunch of evols or whatever they're calling it, flying people around from place to place like a taxi service.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of, it'll be interesting. It'll be really cool to see what it's going to be. I know that I'm old enough that I'll get to see this thing keep flourishing for as long as I'm alive. I don't expect it's going to go anywhere in that time.
And again, we've already got, you got a few years on little Ian.
Yeah.
And
like double.
Well, okay. Yeah, coming up on it.
Double his life.
No, that's okay.
No, it's good though.
Those, they are going to show up. If you do find a time machine, go hit the lotto, and then maybe we can see the shop expand. But
buddy, if I could do that, it would have been done by now.
Yeah.
Trust me.
But it's the actual event, it recedes farther and farther into history, and the people who lived it are nearly all gone. But I think it was such, the World War II meaning, it was such an event in human history that it's not going to fade for an awfully long time. And as long as we have the artifacts and we have the people who care enough to really restore them to what they were and appreciate them for what they are, you got
and like I said, I'm not saying it's going away.
No.
I mean, I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is it's getting much more specialized.
Mm-hmm.
So in the 80s, you could probably go to, I don't know, every other airport in this country, and there'd be some guy that was building something in his hangar, that you wouldn't even know was there, and unless you went out there on a Saturday and he opened his doors, and then there'd be a Mustang project or something. That was fairly well along and pretty easy, but the guys out there tinkering on it. But you're not going to see that as much anymore. Now you're going to see these more specialty companies that all that stuff kind of gets funneled to.
Well, but it's
care of it. So then you can outfit that because you don't have as many people doing it, but you have more passionate people doing it.
Well, and they're
taking care of that business.
They're doing it in correct, in historically correct fashion. In the 80s, the hangar door rolls out, and it's a Mustang, and the guy flies it, but it's not a restored Warbird.
But here's an interesting question. Now, you get in the 80s and you got every other Joe out in the world building airplanes and putting them into the world, or would you rather have just some specialty shops putting out a couple a year? Quantity over quality?
I'm a pure... I want the Mustangs, for example. I don't know, there's 100 and some flying in the country. I want those to keep flying. And I certainly don't want to lose any, but at the same time, the history geek in me, you're the pilot. I want it to be right.
Yeah.
And you can take that, hobbyist Mustang and make it right. We're not going to build any more, but guys like your dad are rooting them up from the jungles of New Guinea.
Yeah.
And that's something that, we worry about the cost of these things anymore, but I think the cost is reflective of the value of them.
Well, I think you're finding that more and more with some of these restorations, it's not even really about the cost.
Nah.
It's about the rarity. It's about
the value.
But not the money value.
No.
The historical value. And I mean, kind of having a one of one. It's kind of like the Helldiver we finished, being a Dash 1A.
Yep.
Really originally a Shrike. So, I mean, there are none of those in the world flying.
And so likely not going to be.
Yeah, and I mean, what's the value monetarily on that? I have no idea, but I don't know what somebody would be willing to spend to buy it, but it's there, and it's really about the history of it.
Sure.
And so that's why you'll see some of these now, some of these other things, like maybe some of the P40s and the Mustangs that are being built, they are, I don't want to say they're being scratch built, but there is definitely an ability to build a Mustang from scratch. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
The parts are out there, the tooling's out there. There's been enough of them built. It's not hard to do. So, and that's just to have, hey man, let's put another Mustang in the air. Let's put another P40 in there. Let's do that because, for me, my greatest joy would be to sit out at the air show or an airport and watch 25 P40s fly by, in formation.
That'd be something.
It kind of harkens back to what the war was like. That's one of those lasting missing images in my life of, like, you watch the films and you just see throngs and throngs of these things flying over, and I've never been able to experience that. And I'll never experience it.
No, nobody's going to experience hundreds of B-17s flying over the
continent. So that to me would
be
really... So there's kind of a fine line between, just throwing a bunch of airplanes in the world and having to be whatever, and then versus a couple of airplanes that are really to the nth degree restored and perfect. So
you are the pilot. What's the first Warbird you flew?
Believe it or not, a B-25. Yeah, of all things. Yeah, I've been, of course, I've been around this, and I'm fortunate enough. I haven't had to go out and have a real job where I had to buy my own stuff and bring my own way up. Being around here and really dedicating my time to this place and affords me the ability to get to fly some of this stuff.
So, next question. What's the one that you would most want to fly?
See, I can't just answer that because
that's so hard for
it's
any
so
of
hard.
us.
Everything's got its own thing. Do I want to fly the airplane that I grew up just loving? A P-40. Flying Tigers. They were such underdogs, and it was such an underdog airplane, but yet it was such a badass airplane, and they did so well with it. So that's that. And then I've gotten to fly in the back seat of a Tiger Cat, and let me tell you, I've flown in a couple of Mustangs, and they don't compare to that Tiger Cat.
Well,
so just for the pure badassery, the Tiger Cat.
Yeah.
But then I sit here and I look at this.
I think we got.
I know. I'm just obviously, these things are in my purview, and I see them every day. But that's just the truth. I was a kid, 12, 13 years old when my dad acquired a 375 Tiger Cat from Pima. And so me and my brother and Alan and Wojak and my dad, we went out to Pima and disassembled that thing and got it ready to ship to Rialto. So I got pictures and memories of taking that thing and going, man, this is going to be awesome when it flies. And I only had to wait 30-something years for that to happen, but, I got to be a part of that restoration and painted it and did all the cool stuff to it. And that's, I got one flight in it. And it was kind of like almost a full circle moment, one step away from being a full circle moment for me. But, I don't know. Every time I get to fly the B-25, that's it's awesome. The Helldiver, I'd love to fly the Helldiver, P-38. Who wouldn't want to fly the P-38? Corsair.
There's nothing here that I would turn my nose up at.
So that's such a hard, I guess, a lot of people I've asked that and well, what's next? Whatever one's next. What's your favorite? Whichever one I get to fly next, or whichever one I just flew. And that's the truth. That's what you get from people.
Because those are the people that appreciate and understand.
I haven't met a single pilot that flies any of the stuff that doesn't appreciate what they're doing and takes any bit of it for granted. They're some of the most just genuinely thankful. Most of them can't believe that this is their life kind of thing. Yeah. And that's what makes this community really cool is that you get a lot of support from people that have done it or doing it. And it just makes it a really great place to grow up. It makes it a really great place to really put your effort and life into. Just from that aspect of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. They're just the greatest people, you know, and I love all of them. They're all fantastic, and I just love spending my time with them. You know, the ones that are here all the time, the ones that come in and fly for us. There's not a bad one in the bunch.
No, I certainly haven't met one. And the great thing about doing this podcast is we got a perfect excuse to spend a little extra time with them.
Oh yeah.
And you know.
Yeah, I'm fortunate, man. I get, you know, and it's even doubly fortunate I get to do this with my dad.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the reason I was been able to fly the B-25 is his B-25, and so I when we moved out here, I still had young kids, so I wasn't as involved. You know, I was working here, but I wasn't involved on the volunteer side as much, or coming out on weekends working on airplanes. And when we moved out here, it kind of was able to focus my energy a little bit more into this place. And I had just gotten my pilot's license in California before we moved out here. My youngest son was born. I decided to hang up the motocross pants, you know, and decided
you want to be able to walk with your kid.
Well, you know, hey, this could kill me, so
Yeah.
how about I just go out and get my pilot's license instead, you know? So I did that before we moved out here. Really, you know, I went through Art Scholl Aviation, Judy
Oh, no
Scholl.
kidding.
Yeah, Judy Scholl is a good friend of ours, and she really helped me scoot along through that program. Couldn't have done it without her. And so I got my license. So I'm a very low time pilot, you know. And then when I got out here, I got my dad's like, go get your multi-engine, and then, you know, start doing some flying together in the B-25.
Yeah.
So I was able to do that.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah,
But you were a low time pilot from Shoals.
I was a low time pilot. Period. I'm
Yeah,
still a low time pilot.
That's like saying, I got my driver's license down at the DMV, or I got my driver's training from Bob Bondurant. You know, I mean,
Well, I didn't get it directly from Judy Scholl,
Well,
but
no,
I mean,
but-
yeah, you know,
but it's an organization that is a cut above.
yeah. Well, she had some really good instructors, and I
Sure.
had one in particular that was a really good instructor, and we just did very well together. She taught me a lot of great things, and then I was able to jump before I left into a Super Cub with a guy on the field, Tom Jones, and
So you got
that
some
was real
dragger
flying.
time.
That was real flying. I got my tailwheel endorsement with him, and I didn't know you could do that kind of stuff with an airplane legally and
Physically?
with brains. I didn't know you could physically do some of that stuff. And,
Yeah.
and he was showing me, and then he'd have me do it, and I'm like, wait, you want me to do that? So it was pretty cool. You got to see kind of what an airplane can do and stuff. But yeah, you know, I don't know. Just being here and being able to work with my dad on a daily basis, and then to get to go fly with him, you know. I mean, you know, we put on this air show every 2 years.
Yep.
And we're usually the first act to go out, the bomber parade.
Sure.
And, you know, you're just weeks and weeks and months and a year of planning and getting it together. And then, you know, we get to taxi out in the B-25, and it's usually just the two of us. And then you just sit out there and you're waiting for the show to start, and you just get to look at each other and go, we did it.
Yeah.
You know, we're
Well,
here.
that's-
Let's go put on a show now. Let's go have some
Yep.
fun.
Yep.
And so it's really pretty cool.
Well, yeah, I know
Very
flying
fortunate.
with my dad was special to me,
Yeah.
and you get to keep doing it.
Well,
So-
yeah, hopefully.
Well, that's the
Hopefully for a
plan.
long time to come.
Yeah, he's a pretty healthy sort.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not worried about him. I'm worried about me. The guy running circles around me all day long. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Never been passed on a hike, I understand.
No. And he'll tell you about it too.
Yep.
It's
well,
awesome.
that's what keeps.
I feel bad for those 20-something-year-old girls out there getting passed by him, you know. But it's great. I mean, it's a great environment.
Well,
Couldn't ask for anything better.
I don't know that I've done you justice here, but we probably ought to wrap up pretty quickly.
It's probably more than anybody wanted to know to begin with, so here we are.
Well, we've already done that one.
No, I enjoy it, man. doing this, sitting down with you and having a good time and getting to talk to people and hearing stories and just getting to be able to put them out in the world for other people to absorb.
To
and
share.
Yeah, I mean, how many of these stories have we sat down with people and we didn't know? And then, you get comments. Yeah, it's pretty cool because we have an event out here sometimes, and then perfect stranger will come up to you or I, and they'll be like, "Hey, man, we're really enjoying the show, and I didn't know that was a great story about so and so." And
yeah,
so it's really a privilege to be able to do this with you.
No, it's a treat.
Bring all that to the world.
It's a treat. Well, thanks, Podner.
All right, Rob. Thank you.
And I'll stay safe out there. For my partner and guest, Scott Klaers, I'm Rob Gale.
Don't forget William Stephenson behind the cameras.
Looking right at him as he's
I know this is
magic.
usually what I do.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think I've got about 3 minutes of voice left. So,
all right, Rob.
Let's wrap it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, take it easy out there.